This is an oral history interview with Elizabeth O'Hearn by Mark Sullivan, conducted on Saturday, March 22nd, 1986, at 174 Elliott Street, Newton Upper Falls, Massachusetts. This interview is conducted as part of the oral history project of the Newton Free Library. The general subject areas we will be covering include work, social, and family history in Upper Falls during the 20th century. If you tell me a little bit about your childhood in Upper Falls, and tell me a little about your parents and your father's work.
Well, I was born here and went to the Emerson School, and then they had 8 grades in those days, so I graduated in 8th grade, no junior high, and then I went on to the Newton High School. There was one high school, Newton High School, and graduated from there.
Where was that located?
Newtonville.
Okay.
Newtonville. It's Newton North now, and Newton South's over here.
Okay.
So
And how long was that before Route 9 was put in? Or?
No, Route 9 was there. Route 9 was
Okay.
there. Then after graduating from high school, we took the streetcar down. There were no buses in those days. We took the streetcar down Newton High School, and we received tickets, bus tickets. And then when I graduated from high school, I went to Framingham. It was Framingham normal in those days. It was 2 years course, and we went on the streetcar, which came from Boston and went to Framingham. And that went up Route 9. And that was the way we went back and forth. And then after that, I got a job teaching music. And then after a few years, I decided it was necessary to get a degree. So I went to Boston University and got my bachelor's degree in education. And then after a few years, I decided I'd continue and get my master's degree. So I took a sabbatical and went into BU, and I was in the reading clinic there, and I got my master's degree. Then I came back, and they said, will you take first grade? I had taught 2nd grade, 3rd grade, 4th grade. Will you take first grade? I said, no, it's too hard. So they said, well, they kept asking me, and I did take first grade, so I ended up with, or yeah, my
Teaching
degree.
first grade?
I taught in first grade, yes. No, I liked it. Then my brother was 7 years younger, and he went through the schools, and he went through high school, then he went to Boston College, and graduated in 36. And then that year was the first year the Boston College School of Social Work started, so he entered in September 36 and graduated 38 in the first class of Boston College School of Social Work. And that was in Boston. He had to go all the way in town. In near Newbury Street in there.
And how did you do that?
He would, I think he took the train in. There was a train going from Elliott, he drove to Elliott Station. And then went Elliott Station, Newton Harris, Newton Center, Chestnut Hill. And then he'd take the train into Boston. That's what he did. Then my mother was born here in Newton Falls, and she went to the Newton schools, and then she went to a Coleman Business College in Boston. My father was born in Brookline, and he went to school at telegraphy, I guess. And then he became, in 1896, he became the station master in Newton Upper Falls Railroad Station. And at that time, he lived in Chestnut Hill, and there was Route 9. There was nothing on Route 9. I guess it was just for horses. And so he would come back and forth on his bicycle because he was not near enough to these trains.
Where did he work?
He worked Upper Falls.
Right.
He lived in Chestnut Hill.
Oh, I see.
And he'd have to come from Chestnut Hill to Upper Falls on his bicycle. The trains were here, but they did not go near his home. So So instead of going back and forth every day, he stayed up here during the week, and he lived with a very nice lady in house nearby, and board and room. And then he'd go home weekends on his bicycle. And
So how long did that take him?
and his bicycle on Chestnut Hill, BC. It's not far from
It's
BC.
not that far.
No.
But he'd rather stay during the week
Yes,
instead of...
Probably driving wasn't so good, I don't know.
Right.
But that's what he did, really, bicycle.
So do you remember as a child, like going to the railroad station?
Yes.
What
Well,
do you
Sunday
recall?
afternoon when we'd go down to put coal on the fires, on the stoves, or we'd walk along with him Sunday afternoon. And I remember he'd leave the water running so it wouldn't freeze. Otherwise, the coal wouldn't burn for 2 days, so he'd have to shovel the coal.
Right.
And then, diagonally across was the coal yards were there. And then down the track was another coal yard, and coal dealers. And all the coal came by freight from where the coal comes from, Virginia, or down where the coal fields were.
Right.
And so there was there were cold, during the winter there were cold, the cars, there were coal coming in daily. Yeah, that was a lot of work.
So that kept you busy then.
Yes, that during the winter, yeah, that was a lot of work. Then, everyone in town who worked, many of the people around here worked in Boston. And they went into Boston by train, and that was the only way they could get in there. And the train came down from, I think it was Medway, I guess it was, up there, and came down through Needham, and it picked up passengers all the way. And so when they got here in New River Falls, there were quite a few cars filled with people, and then it went into Boston, through Newton Housing into Boston that way. And there were many people. It was a busy station.
Right.
And so my father was there and the others selling tickets, so it was a busy, busy place. So that was...
A lot of people worked in Boston. They didn't stay in Upper Falls.
Some did, but many worked in town. Many worked. Now my grandfather worked down in petty machine shops. And many of the people did work in petty machine shops down there. They made iron ore, they prepared it, and then there was the
This is the old Patty you mentioned before.
yes, he was the superintendent, I think, and I think he lived up in that house across from the church up on the hill. He lived there, but he was a very nice old man. People liked him. He was a big. Many people in the town worked at the penny machine shop. And then there was the Gainwell fire alarm. Now that's across from the railroad station. And the Gainwell fire alarm was when they made fire alarms for all over the country. And then there was the silk mill in Upper Falls. And many people worked down there. And then over on Needham Street, they had the fireworks. They made fireworks for all that industrial area, Marshall's and Marshall's Mall, over Needham Street.
Right. Yeah.
Oh, directly over there is the mall. There's Marshall's and there's Papagino's and CVS and
Okay, is this Newton Highlands?
yes, sort of on the line.
Right.
It's on the line, really. It's directly over there. And they made fireworks there. But of course, no more. And quite a few people worked there making the fire.
Gunpowder.
Yes, you know, it's what they do, I do have firecrackers and all those things. They put on a display of fireworks. It was all made over there.
They're outlawed in this
Yes,
state,
so
but they're
that-
still illegal down in the southern states, in South Carolina.
Mhm.
We just drove down to Florida, and we bought them as we were driving down to South Carolina.
Oh.
And but you can only light them in South Carolina. So when we brought them back here, we weren't supposed to light them, but we did.
Well, all that property was bought by the realtors, and that's where Marshall, you don't go to Marshall's. Everyone goes to Marshall's, everyone knows about Marshall's. And it's a big industrial area, not industrial, it's a mall for stores. And it's a narrow street, and because of so many stores, that they're going to do something about it. They're planning to. They can't widen it much, but they're going to try and do something. But the important thing is to have, there's so much traffic, to have traffic lights. See, Oak Street goes down and meets Highland Avenue and Needham Street.
Right.
And they want to put a traffic light there, because if you go down there, it's impossible to get across there. No.
Could you tell me a little bit about your own? You said you were a teacher, and maybe you could tell me a little bit how the school system was set up then and how it changed.
Well, I taught down in the Stern School in Newton, and that was supposed to be the lowest socio-economic part of the city. We used to call it the Lake. It was quite an Italian district. And most of my children were Italian. And some of them, years ago, would just come from Italy. They would get off the boat. In those days, in the early days, they get off the boat. Now they come by plane. And that's why they couldn't speak a word of English. But so many of the other children could speak Italian, so I learned a little bit of Italian. And I'd say to scribble a nom, which is write your name. And so I was there for quite a while. But that was the Italian section of Newton, where over another part where more Jewish children went to the school, Ward School, Clapham, B.C. Where up here, Emerson, well, there were a mixture here. You got some Polish children, you got Italian, and you got Armenians, and you got Irish. So you got a mixture up here. But the parents, the father, they were working class people, so they were not as well off as say Chestnut Hill and Newton Center or Warren over there.
Right.
We were well off in the father, we were all professional people. Where here they were the working class. But it was, I graduated in the 8th grade, and you have a feeling, you're in the first school, and that's where you were born, and the part of the section of Newton, even though it's not the wealthy section, you have a feeling for it. It's hometown. You know.
You've been loyal till you've been here.
Yes, I was born here. And then I went to the Newton School, and then I taught school here in Newton, and I lived here. I hope to die here. I hope I won't have to go to another apartment. Here you can look out on all four sides. I can walk out in the yard if I want to. There's an apartment, you know. The noisy people upstairs, or someone has radio and music going. And when you get old, you just can't take it.
Do you remember when Route 9 was put in, and it sort of it divided Upper Falls from the rest of Newton?
Not exactly, because when I went to Framingham, we went on the streetcar.
Right.
We had buses then. We went on the streetcar. Now that was in 1920 something. 22, 23. So I don't know when before
Yeah, I believe that the Route 9 was put in during the 30s. And it actually does sort of cut off Upper Falls from the rest. And I was wondering if you thought that Upper Falls, do you feel like you're in Newtonian or someone from Upper Falls? Like, is it separate from that? Or?
I don't think it mattered too much to me. I don't remember when it went in. I mean, I was too young.
Right.
But you said in the 30s.
That's what I believe I read.
In the 30s. Maybe they made it like a main highway in that time, where we went up to Framingham on the Worcester Road, maybe it was called, in the Boston-Worcester streetcar.
Right.
And maybe, after that in the 30s, maybe they took up the tracks and did away with the streetcars and paved it for buses. I'm not sure.
So you didn't see too much of a change?
No, I didn't see too much of a change. The street is still the same.
Right.
And the streetcars went up with on the buses.
So you worked, you taught all through, how late did you teach?
I retired in 1970.
Teach
It's 42 years.
sometime?
1970, yeah. Long before you were born.
Well, no, I was born before 1970.
Yeah.
1964.
Mm-hmm.
Not too far. Yeah, and you said you had one brother?
Yes.
You said you only...
Yeah, that's the only one, just one brother who's 70 years. And he went to Washington to live. He graduated from D.C. School Associated in the first class, but his first job was in Washington, the Catholic Charities. He was on the Catholic Charities. Then I guess it didn't make too much money, so he got the government job.
And he lived there?
Then when he went to Catholic Charities in Washington, the year after, his wife came to work there. And so in a few years they were married. His girlfriend. So they were married, and they settled. She was a third generation Washingtonian. So they settled there and still there. So I go down now and we have no one here. So I go down Christmas for a month, and in the spring for a month, and the summer. I go to Easter for a month.
Does he come up there to visit you?
Not now. He used to, but he had 2 children and his family, so it's easier for me to go down as one than for the family to come up. They came up for all funerals and everything like that. It's easy for me to go down. Well, he's not as well. He had a stroke back in 77, so he's okay. He retired, but he wouldn't come up here.
Do you have any nieces and nephews?
Yes, I have,
Is that
that,
couple of them
there she is there. Well, my brother, when he went to work in Washington, they adopted a little girl, and there she is up there. And then when she was 2 years old, they adopted a boy. And then the little girl developed a tumor on the brain. And she died when she was like kindergarten age, so they were heartbroken. So then that year, my sister-in-law became pregnant, and they had one of their own. She's on the left there. That was back in 53. And so she is now married, and has a wonderful husband who's a lawyer. And they've adopted a baby. They got him when he was 1 month old, and there he is over there in Prince William's My niece works for the junior. Yes, there he is, at the beach in the summer. My niece works for the junior league down there, and so they were selling Prince Williams. You know, he's the same name. Prince Williams suit. So there he is. He just learned to stand up, and that's a Prince William suit, all smocked in front. The color is blue smocking. So there he is with his tongue out. So they had that fixed for him.
Looks like he's enjoying
Just learning to stand up, so that's what get his hands up because he can fall down.
balancing himself.
Yeah, So they're very happy. Then they had the boy they adopted is down in Texas, and his boy is now 16. So they come up for Christmas. Well, there's my niece and her husband right up there.
Oh, yeah.
They were married in 79.
Mhm.
And that she is when she was 3 years old. She was 3 years old now, and then she was married. She's now 253.
She gets knocked off the balls.
Back up and fall. You have to trust that out.
That's all very interesting. Could you tell me any major changes that you've seen throughout your lifetime right in the upper floors?
Well, of course, when you might be interested in when my mother was growing up here, and her father was living, so that would be 1890 something. That's before the time you want. But it's sort of interesting information. They would go to church, Fidelity, at night, and this where this house is now was a big hole, and there was a stone wall all along there. And my grandmother's house is in the next street. So my grandfather would take a lantern, and my mother and her 2 sisters would go to Fidelity at the church, and he would walk with them through a pathway and come out 2 houses down, and then they'd walk up the street to the church. And then when it was over, they would walk back, and my grandfather would meet them with a lantern down there and walk them through the park. And there was nothing here, nothing these houses, nothing here. This is all empty space.
Most of the houses were near the mills.
Yes,
and
yeah. And huge.
This is a newer part of Upper Falls. This part of Elliott
Yes.
Street.
Yeah, although that house is very old up in the hill.
Right.
And that has been added onto. But up from the corner, as you go around the corner, there's an old house, and there are various old houses around, and they have dates on them, 1870.
I saw one, there's 1830. I
Yes,
believe.
They have dates on them. And the historic section of Newton is like, the historic section of Upper Falls takes in like High Street and part of Chestnut and around there, and part of Boylston Street. Over in Boylston Street, there's a house that sets up on the hill, and it was like a hotel for people coming from, on their way to Boston, and stop here for the night. So there are certain streets that in the historical area. Now, Ken Newcomb probably has told about that because he knows every house. And down around the deep Penny Square, down around the depot, there are lots of buildings there that in the historical area because they were built way back.
Right.
Of course, this house was built in 1914. My father and mother lived up the corner, two houses up. And then my father bought this land and had this house built in 1914.
So you lived in this house most of your life?
Yes, I was 7 years old when we built the house. We lived 2 houses up. But many of the new houses, not all up that street there and around newer ones. They're not in historical. area. But of course in late years they closed the school, the numbers decreased and they closed the school, which is very, very sad. We hope it will be. It's the last one in the city of Newton before you get to meet them. So we hope that it will be for the people that they didn't, because they closed so many schools in Newton every year since. So. Then our children, because the children nowadays take the bus to school, and they take the bus everywhere. Where in the days of long ago, we walked everywhere. We walked to school, we walked to church, we walked to do our shopping. And then when we'd go to Newton Highlands to do shopping, we'd walk everywhere. When I was young, we didn't have a car. So we walked everywhere. Probably was in a healthier condition for doing all the walking.
But did you stay basically in the Upper Falls area, or did you have to? I mean, Upper Falls is pretty independent. You had all these shops,
Yes,
and
yeah,
you could stay right here.
You could stay right here. There was a store, little stores, and there was a shoemaker up the street, and everything you needed was here.
Right here, so you didn't really have to go out.
You didn't have to go. No. As a child, we didn't go. And I can remember when I was a child, my aunt would go every Friday night to the butcher shop, and that was near the school on High Street. And I would go with her, and she would leave an order for meat for the weekend, and a roast of beef, and lamb chops, and steaks, and things like that.
Stocked up for the week.
Get stocked up. And then the man would come, the butcher would come out and deliver Saturday morning. We would bring so much home. We always brought lamb chops home, because Saturday morning we had lamb chops for breakfast.
That's an unusual breakfast.
And then during the week he would come and stop at the house. He had a white truck, and my mother would get out and buy some more meat. We ate more meat in those days than we do nowadays, because meat was not as expensive as it is now.
Oh, you'd buy it. You wouldn't buy. You just buy from him every few days because you
Well,
couldn't
maybe
keep it
he'd come like the
frozen.
middle of the week.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't have freezers in those days. We had a
Right.
refrigerator. Like when I was a child, the Iceman would come a couple of times during the week and would come in with a big block of ice. And we put it in your refrigerator.
Right.
But in those days you didn't have electric refrigerator. This was all when I was a child. And the Iceman would come, and it was sad you get a big piece of ice. But then the meat man would come, and I would, a couple of times to do meat, I'm not sure. But we'd buy enough like over a weekend. But you couldn't freeze things, it was all put in the refrigerator.
You had to eat up the meats right away.
Yes, you had more of it. Yes, the meat man, the butcher was here, and the grocer was here, and the shoemaker was here, and you had your shoes taken care of more frequently than you do now.
Because you walked everywhere.
Yes,
And do most people, do you think, basically stayed right in the area, or?
I think they did, yes.
Except, and then there were those that went out to Boston to work.
Yes.
Is that where they mostly went to Boston?
Yes, they went to Boston to work. My mother went to Boston to work. I don't know, she worked for Cotton Yarn Goods. She was like secretary to the president there. And she went to Comer's, the business college, and I guess it was through that she got the job in Boston. So the only way to get on over here, Upper Falls Railroad Station, and go right to Boston. And then when she would get on, there would be, they had several cars, and people would get on Needham and Medway, and she got acquainted with quite a few people who lived up that way. And they would be riding together every day, so she had friends up there together.
Back then it was probably a much longer commute. Now you can just like zip right into Boston, and so it must have she was doing that every day. Must have, how long do you think it would take?
But they would just go directly. Then they'd stop at Newton Highlands, and I think they would stop at Newton Center in Chestnut Hill at the same stops that the T makes now,
Right.
because they use the same tracks.
But nowadays, though, but most people, there aren't as many people walking right in at the falls. Most
No.
people don't really.
Because many drive in now up on the hill. He's a lawyer and she's a paralegal, and they drive to Boston. So in those days, when my mother took the train, because people didn't drive to Boston. Although she had a friend who worked in Boston, and this friend's boyfriend, and then became husband, would drive them home. And it was an open car in those days, and my mother said she would take her newspaper and hold it in front of her, put her newspapers inside her coat to keep
People
breezes. Yeah.
You didn't see too many automobiles?
No.
At all? When did it start?
Well, I do remember when we were living in that house and I was under 7, that the assistant pastor, Father Donovan, at the church, he had a car, and he kept it in the garage here, and then you had to walk all the way back to the church at night when you leave the car there. But there were not as many cars. The roads were not as good. There were not as many, nothing like that, no traffic lights, nothing like that, when I was a child.
It was like a leisure, mostly
Yes.
privilege for people who have a car.
Yes, you had to have a little money.
But do you remember during, about the 1930s, there was a depression and how that affected people's lives?
I don't remember too much about it. My memory isn't so good now, but it did affect many people in the time of the Depression. You always hear them refer to it. I can't tell you any specifics.
Like you would call it maybe a lot of people out of their jobs, out of their mills.
Yes, and then they began not having as much business down there, so they began closing shops there, yes, and doing away with some of them. And then I think the petty machine shops, I think they had, they opened up another shop down in Biddeford, Maine. And so they were not doing as much here. But, I think they were bigger roads. But gradually, the fireworks closed up. A lot of people were burned and the fireworks. And that gradually closed up. And
What do you mean people were burned?
making the powder and
They got
they got burned.
Injured,
Or there'd be explosions when something would go off. Lots of people were burned over there. I was young, and I remember hearing about it. How they did it.
And then through, the war days, do you remember that at all?
Yes, I do. I remember when the First World War, when I was up at the Emerson School, and we heard the war was over, and then I guess it was a false alarm. So when it was finally over, the day the armistice was signed, the whole school paraded around through the town to celebrate the time off. Yeah. But I do remember when the boys came back that there was a fellow who lived down the foot of this hill, and when he came back from the war, all the neighbors, we all went down to see him. It was just a big event for him to return safe and sound. Charlie Bailey was his name. And then you do remember the different ones that come back, and then those that didn't come back, those were children, medium, fresh, and young. And then the services they had, and for those that had died, and the memorial plaques they put up, and things like that.
And your father, he wasn't involved.
No, he wasn't involved. He was. My brother, he was in the service for a while. He was in the service, but he didn't go across. He was out in Camp Crowder, Missouri. That's as far as he got. He was in G2 Military Intelligence Studies. And there was another fellow out there who met him from Upper Falls. And I guess he was waiting at a station, get a bus or something. And this fellow wrote back to his mother, and he said, I thought I saw Jim O'Hearn there. But he said he didn't have a cross on his lapel. And he said he thought that every boy that went to Boston College became a priest. So he wrote to his mother and he said it couldn't have been. He didn't have a cross on his uniform, and he wasn't a priest. So that was a false idea.
Right. I think there were more became priests then than now.
Yes, yeah.
That's funny.
Yeah. So his mother called my mother up to say that. And they said, no, every boy that went to Boston College did not become a priest. Even those days.
So she knew it was him.
Yeah, she knew he was the right one. But just because he didn't have the cross on this chaplains do, he thought, he should be the chaplain, but he was married.
So that was the First World War. Do you Connie did about the Second World War?
I'm not a great historian, so I don't remember.
Or just like people's attitudes, or during that war, did the shops close down too, and people?
No, they didn't close down. Really during the Depression. No, I can't give you much help here. I didn't know anyone really that was it was the First World War that, so many of the boys in the village went to the war.
Right.
But, not too many went the second or the next one. It's not so vivid in my mind as the first one. Maybe you were younger and
It just stuck in my mind more. So I've been playing into it. So what do you think has changed in like this education when you were a teacher
the education has changed a lot. There's much more freedom in the schools, I think.
You said you taught the first grade most of the time?
I started with second, and then I went to third, and then I went to fourth, and then I had a double grade, and then I went into BU, and then I come back and I had first grade. But in the days of long ago, there's much more. Well, isn't it? Now they have so much freedom that you have to do this and do that. They have so many choices to do. But now you sat in your seat and you did what you're supposed to do, what the teacher told you to do. But then gradually, they changed and had like open classroom. You had to have one group here, one group there, one group there. And they'd all be going on at the same time. I think the children probably get used to it more than the teachers would. You'd have to look to see what was going on in the next group instead of concentrating in the loan. But when I left, that's when they were doing that. But I don't. Then it has changed since then, and they've had open classroom and so much freedom of choice, and you can do more what you want to do than what you're supposed to do. So that's how it has changed a lot. I don't think I could be back now.
Been changed with
I
the
don't
new
think I would have
way.
changed with the times as easily. Maybe I would, but as you grow older, you look at things differently. But, I'm glad I taught Newton because as I go around, I meet lots of people who remember me. They say I haven't changed, and they call me
So a
my
lot of
name.
these students,
Our students, firemen, policemen, they work for the city and call my name out as I go around and recognize me.
you right now you're very sick and very busy now than
Yes.
ever.
I'm a volunteer at the nursing home on Mechanic Street. We play Beano with the girls, so senior drills, the young ladies.
What was
And I
that
call out the
big-
numbers, Beano or Bingo.
This is
Beano, same
same
thing.
type of thing.
I call out the numbers and the ladies find it. So they have so much fun doing it that I don't mind giving their time.
They have a little prize money.
Oh yes, no money, no.
money.
Jewelry mostly.
Mhm.
Necklace, beads of it, jewelry. Or sometimes they'll have a Valentine's Day or Halloween, they'll have candy for them, piece. But it's mostly jewelry or pad of paper, note paper, or something like that. Something.
Right.
Now that's Greg McDonald's mother. That's Mrs. McDonald's mother.
Does Greg come over here to take care of the lawn and
Well, he used to, and I depend on them to shovel my walks and cut some bushes and that. But now they've gone to college, and when they were off at college, I didn't see them only Christmas time and that, because the snowstorms would be after they'd gone back. So I had to get someone. So I got another boy who lives up the street and goes to Northeastern at the present time. And then I have to get someone to, I like to cut in the bushes, but sometimes if the boys are there, I'll say, will you help me do this? Will we do it? Now they work.
Greg's pretty busy. He's at the backyard.
So you can't depend on him. And he has a girlfriend. So I have to hire people. They've all grown up. Now David is the youngest one. He's in college. In the summer he works, so he's no help. But they were good workers. As far as shoveling my driveway and shovel the walks. They were good workers. Louis and Greg. They were two best ones. Some of the others, look at the snow and shovel.
What are you doing any other community?
Oh, I started to tell you, you're asking what I was doing. We used to go square dancing until the last year or so, and we had a man who was very good. These are all for senior citizens.
Mm-hmm.
We'd go one day a week to the high school before it burned down, and then Wednesday we go to Wellesley Junior High. There was a fine man there, and he'd done it all his life.
Mm-hmm.
But he had Parkinson's disease, and of course he had hold the mic. So then his wife died, so he gave up. So then we had another man take over, and he was 83 or so, and he had 2 hip replacements. He was good. He just knew his all kinds of line dancing and rounds and square dancing. And when we had this other man, he would have a break between 1 and 2. We'd have a break and have coffee, tea, and cookies. But this older man, in mid-80s, would want to go right through the 2 hours and not stop a minute. Of course, you're out of breath. His wife says he's awful. He just go right through the 2 hours. So then someone told her we were in the habit of having a break for 10 or 15 minutes. So then he decided, well, he gets 5 minutes and a cup of tea. But but he didn't really like that. And now he's the school. Well, the high school's burned down. And then some of the students went to countryside, and some went to Warren, and that's where we used to go. And so there was no room for us. They used the gym and they used all the rooms, so there's no place for us to go. There's a place down in Newtonville, but there's blood on the floor, so it's a little bit of a place. So we haven't done it for last year, we miss it.
There's a lot of you did that?
Yes, and Catherine Murphy was my cat, was my name. Because there were very few men. We had a few couples there, but very, very few.
Sounds like a lot of fun.
Yes, it was a lot of fun. We enjoyed it, yeah. Tuesday of 1 week, the Highland, and Wednesday of the next week, so we go every week. And then Wednesday morning up here, the senior citizens, it's under the Newton Humanities Service, something like that. And we meet Wednesday morning. There's a director from the Newton group, the Newton headquarters, Dottie Ensley, and she sort of lines it up. And we have a lecture 1 week, and then we go on a trip about once a month, and then there's a senior citizen social. They take your blood pressure, they take you up there. And it's a very interesting group. There probably were 60 or more, sometimes more than that. We had a potluck luncheon couple of weeks ago. And then we had the FBI, a girl from the FBI, she was an FBI special agent, and she was a handsome looking girl, tall, and a short hairdo, a navy suit with gold buttons, and beautiful teeth, and she was from the Boston office, but she was a New Yorker, and her husband was an agent too. Her name was Kathleen Brannigan. Irish name. She was excellent, and she told about the things they do. She came up to the Emerson and talked for a while, and they asked my brother to learn how to drive. My mother hired a lady who was teaching everyone around town. She was from England, and she took him out and gave him some lessons, and she said, I don't need to give him any more. The young boys just seem to know how to drive. Where my father was learning late in life, and it was difficult. But she said that my brother didn't give him a lesson, but she went with him until he got his license. She said they just seem to take to young folks, young boys.
Did you have to be a certain age to get your license?
Yes, 16.
It's the same now.
Same, I think it is the same now. But then when my brother was in B.C., it was easy for me to take the bus here and get off right at the school. And they went every half hour. But going to B.C. in those days was a little difficult from here, so he drove the car to B.C. I didn't think it was easy for me to go on the bus. So,
this is when you were teaching at this now.
I was teaching there, and he was at B.C. I started teaching in 27, I think it was. And then he went to he graduated from BC 36, so it must have been when 32. He graduated 36, and then got his master's at 38. So it was when he went down there, so it was easy for me to get the bus. And I didn't have to walk around this one. But here,
What was it like not having a television set in your house?
And of course, no radio in the early days, no radio.
There was no.
We didn't have
house-
radios until I was,
Oh, in like the 1930s? Or?
no, it was before that. But when we got a radio, it was a big thing. And one Christmas we got a radio, and that was a big event, you know, have a radio. And then,
That
I
was
think-
about, when was that?
maybe the early 20s. Early 20s.
Mhm.
And then they had earphones, but then I guess you could turn it on. But that was a big event with the radio.
Mhm.
And then we didn't have television until
I think that was until the 50s. They decided, or maybe later than that.
we had it before then. I was going into BU
Mhm.
with some courses, and I remember I was studying in there, and my mother and aunt would be sitting here listening to the TV. And I closed that door going in the hall door, and I closed the bedroom door so I wouldn't hear. But maybe that was the 50s, and the late 40s.
Mhm.
We had, of course, it was in black and white. And that was wonderful then, to have a black and white,
Then, was that like, wow, you know, like this is amazing? Now people take it for granted.
That's it, yeah. The children brought up, and I heard with the news last night that they tested 19,000 children out west to see what their health, to see how much exercise they had and what they could do. They couldn't chin themselves, and they couldn't run for so long, and they couldn't do push-ups, sit-ups. They could do they failed right and left. And what's the reason? Well, they come home from school and they watch television in the afternoon. Very few of them go out and play. And some of the schools now, they do not have as many phys ed teachers or now after school they don't go, there's no extra teachers, so the boys and girls can't go to the gym and play basketball or play various things. They used to have a lot of after school sports after school
Well,
sports.
we had that.
But nowadays they don't have as many because they cut down the teachers, and they don't have the teachers, so the kids
They go home and
they
just
go
watch
home.
TV.
That's it, you know. And they don't walk home. They take buses now. Years ago they would walk. I know, and my mother would say that many years ago, that was before the buses, before the streetcars. When they went to Newton High School, they would walk from here down to Newtonville, to Newton High School.
That's quite a walk.
Yes, well, I was from here, from my house to Stern School was 4 miles, so it was 3 miles. And then, many years ago, the people would walk from this church down to Watertown, when there was no church here, and they would walk to Watertown to go to Mass. That was long ago. Now, Watertown is 5 or 6 miles. Who would walk to Mass 5 miles nowadays? They'd have an excuse too far away. And then when this church was built, there was no church over in Warren. So the children who lived in Warren all walked over here to Mass, and then they'd have Sunday school afterwards. And they were in my class of Sunday school, and they lived in Warren. Well, that was a good long walk. Warren, yes. But it was the only way to get. People didn't have cars in those days when I was a child, and you would walk or stay home. So you walked. It was better for you.
You wouldn't, you didn't have the other choice.
No,
so
there was
you
no
did.
choice. And Sunday afternoons you go out for a walk. You wouldn't stay, you had no television to sit and watch a program or watch the games. So you'd walk, and outside we'd walk to the cemetery. That's a good long walk. And when I was in Sunday school, I know the first Sunday of November, All Souls Day came along. The Sunday school was in the afternoon, like 2:30 to 3:30, so you couldn't go anywhere. So that Sunday, the whole Sunday school would march up to the cemetery and probably say the rosary or stations or something up there. And it was cold in November then. It got cold early at some, so they would walk up. And so Sunday afternoon to go to Sunday school, so that's there the whole afternoon. In the morning you go to church, so then other times you go for a walk. Or visit your relatives, if you could walk to them.
Were most of your relatives, like cousins, or in this area?
Definitely. My grandmother and aunts and uncles lived down the next street. But my other grandmother lived down Chestnut Hill on Route 9, near St. Lawrence's Church. But then when the streetcars came, we would go down the streetcar to visit them. And they would come up here to visit us.
Did you go into Boston much?
Yes. And we'd go shopping. If I wanted a pair of shoes, we'd go in to see Santa Claus, we'd go in to see Santa Claus the day after Thanksgiving. And we'd go, we would get on the streetcar here, go down to City Hall, and get a streetcar that went Newton City Hall, down near Bull's Pond. We'd get a streetcar there that came from Auburndale and went up to Lake Street, by BC. And at Lake Street, you'd get another streetcar that took you into Boston. That was a long journey. But that's the way you get to Boston.
Now you could just go right on
the T.
On the T.
Yeah, or the train. They weren't running, but this is when I would go to see Santa Claus. That was years ago. So remember, it was always doing the day after Thanksgiving, that Friday, and be crowded, I wouldn't think of doing it now to go in shopping because it's so crowded. All the college kids are home. So that was what you do. It was a journey to go down here and then get another one, go all the way up Commerce Avenue, and then in Boston. That was a long journey. But
so you had to get prepared for the day before you left.
We had luncheon, But we wouldn't go in many times a year, but that was the bigger thing.
What other things would you do in Boston?
We'd have lunch and go around some of the stores. I remember one time my mother bought me a new pair of white buck shoes. And I guess we went into the ladies' room, and I guess we left the shoes there by mistake. And so someone had picked them up and walked off with them. So I guess they told us to go back and get another pair, which we did. And when the person who picked them up would try and return them, they would fetch them. They just didn't belong to you. I remember that happened. Things like that stick out in your memory. But we wouldn't go in town too many times during the year, because you could get other things around here. But if you wanted to go in and buy maybe a coat or something like that, around here, the local stores, you could get small things, but not, say if you want to buy a winter coat, you go to Boston. Or a spring coat, or a new hat. There's lots of hats in those days. You have to go and get a new Easter hat, Easter bonnet.
Did you travel further away? Did you ever go to travel all the country?
Well, my father was...
Did people do that as much then? People than today you can, with airplanes and everything.
In those days you go by train. See, my father being a railroad man, he could get passes to go on trains. But they didn't use it. They didn't have any place to go to, no relatives. They were all around here. So he belonged to the New England Railroad Agents Association. And then one to him a couple of years. He was president of it. So every year in the fall, they went on trips. And they'd go down to Atlantic City or down to Ocean City or Granger Lake or someplace else.
Mhm.
So they went to Washington one time, and school had started, so it was a big trip, a nice trip. So they kept me out of school, and then they took me to Washington. And then when my brother came along, well, I guess they didn't have the trips so many, so he didn't get into that many trips though. But my mother and father always went on the trips like that, because they'd be gone for so many days and they'd stay at a nice hotel. And of course, the railroad said you wouldn't have to come up to Broadway. And they would have a meeting and then social events. It was a big time. So that's when they went with that.
That was good for you, though. You got to go a few
Yes,
places.
I got to go a few places. And down to Washington when I think it was my first year of high school. And I went to Washington.
Do you remember, like, the other your friends that age? Many people travel?
No, they didn't care about those days. See, everything was local and centered around there, so they had no reason to go. Although people would go to New York, that was about the farthest they went for the weekend. So they'd be to go to New York, but otherwise
Right.
they didn't go places. They just stayed here. Nowadays they fly California for a weekend or something like that. So,
Have you recently traveled much?
well, when my
Said-
mother died in '56, and then I had an aunt living with me, and my grandmother's house was the next street. She sold that, and she came to live here because she had fallen and broken her hip. So she came to live with us. So after my mother died, she was here, and so I didn't want to go. I didn't want to leave her. My brother and his wife had gone for the government over to Karachi, Pakistan, for 2 years. And I thought, well, I'd love to go and visit them. For the summer I could take time off. Well, some people said, oh, make arrangements with the undertaker, and in case she dies, the undertaker can take care of everything. I thought that was kind of heartless. So I said, no, I wouldn't go. So after she died, I had a pal, Catherine Murphy, who taught at the Emerson. And so she waited, and so after my aunt died and we were free to go, we started, and we went, the first year we went to California, and went to San Francisco, and then took a tour all the way, stopped at the cities, all the way down the coast, and then Los Angeles, and then we came back to Colorado, and we had a nice trip there. Then the next year we went to Europe, and a 6 weeks trip in Europe. And they have a cousin, a priest, over in Ireland, so the trip was going to start in New York, and they were going by ship. And so she said, would you just as soon fly to Ireland, spend that week in Ireland, where the rest of the group was a AAA tour. We're on the ship, and I said, oh, I'd love to do that instead. So we spent the week in Ireland, then we picked up the tour in England, and then we went to Holland and Rome and Italy and Switzerland and Paris, and 6 weeks. It was a lovely trip. Then we went to Puerto Rico another time. Then we went to Bermuda, and then we went back to Rome another time. And then we went various places. So we traveled about every year. Yes, we did. Yeah. After we got going, we went in groups. So.
I think I'll be going. My roommates right after graduation will be going over to Europe.
You're graduating this year?
Yes.
Okay.
And we're gonna go right after graduation, and I'm gonna go for about a month. One of my roommates is from Portugal, and so we're gonna travel a little bit, right? Near France and Spain, and then go end our trip in Portugal, right where he lives.
Oh, that's
So
nice. Does he speak Spanish?
he speaks Portuguese,
Oh,
He's learning Spanish. Portuguese and Spanish are very similar.
yes, yes.
So he's learning Spanish now, so he's picking that up.
Mhm.
He says it's easy. He's learning that really easy. He also he lived in France too, so he speaks French
Oh,
and
yes.
and he speaks English also.
Mhm.
So he moved here about 5 or 6 years ago, and when he moved to Cambridge, and he didn't speak any English at
Oh,
all.
that's-
And he was a sophomore in high school, so he had to learn it, but
Yeah.
really.
Well, look, the Cardinal Medeiros came over from Portugal.
Mm-hmm.
Do you remember him?
Yeah, I know.
And he came to Fall River, and he didn't know any English. And someone was telling me something the other week. It happened on St. Patrick's Day that Cardinal Medeiros came to Fall River and couldn't speak any English.
Mm-hmm.
And 2 Irish teachers down Fall River helped him out to learn English, and it gave him the biggest help. So I guess when he became a cardinal, I'm not sure the details, but he gave so much money for a scholarship for some Irish priests, I think.
Mm-hmm.
So now it's gone up. I guess it was $50,000, and I guess it had increased. So I think Cardinal Law told it at the Mass on St. Patrick's Day in the cathedral. So that was the idea of it. That it was for two Irish boys, I think, for priests, because the Irish had helped him out
Right.
down in Fall River. That was interesting.
Yeah.
Help,
Mm-hmm.
help teach the Portuguese. And that's interesting.
Well, that was very informative.
Yes, this is all down here. You'll have to take
I
out a
think
lot of
we
it.
just-